Throughout history, familicide is considered a crime, the most heinous in any society, and it draws media attention and fascination, sometimes much more than a serial killer trial does. Many cannot decide which is worse, a stranger killing innocent strangers, or a parent killing their children, or children killing their parents. During the last quarter of 2024, the case of the Menéndez brothers, Lyle and Eric, has once again hit the deadlines. To recap, in July 1996, after a botched first murder trial, Lyle and Eric were eventually convicted during a highly publicized second trial for the shotgun killings of their parents Kitty and Jose. All evidence pertaining to the alleged sexual abuse by their father was not permitted in the second trial, and the second trial focused mostly upon their spending spree after the murders. Now, after spending almost 35 years in custody, currently 24 members support the immediate release of the brothers, but one uncle opposes it. And the judge has deferred the hearing regarding the brothers' resentencing recommendation to the end of this month, January 2025. Now, the very first reference to familicide was the fratricide committed by Cain when he killed Abel, as told in the Bible. Yet the very first documented murder trial is not about Cain and Abel, but it does relate to familicide. It was an interesting trial, for the defendant was on trial for killing his mother, and she had killed his father, and he said he was honor bound to have revenge. In Athens, at the Areopagus, which is in the shadow of the Acropolis, there is still a grotto which used to be a temple for the Furies, not to be confused with the three fates. And this was where the Athenians would put those accused of murder on trial. Now, according to Achilles, the Orestes, a trilogy of Greek tragedy written in the 5th century BC, covering the murder of King Agamemnon by his wife Clytemnestra, and the murder of Clytemnestra by her son Orestes, and finally the role of the Furies in Orestes' trial. According to this trilogy, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, orchestrated the first murder trial here at the Areopagus temple. Now, the blood feud was running thick and furious in Orestes' bloodline. His ancestor, Tantalus, committed filicide by serving his son's flesh to the gods at Zeus's dinner table. And Tantalus' son, Pelops, was then restored by Clotho. But Pelops committed regicide by killing his father-in-law, and his partner in crime, Myrtilus, cursed his descendants. Pelops' twin sons, Aress and Thyestes, committed fratricide by killing their half-brother, and Aress committed nepoticide by killing his nephews and giving them to Thyestes to eat. Aress' son, Agamemnon, who led the Greeks against the Trojans, committed filicide by killing his daughter, Iphigenia, and sacrificing her to Artemis. His wife, Clytemnestra, swore revenge, and with the help of his cousin, Aegisthus, who was Agamemnon and Menelaus' cousin, when Agamemnon returned from Troy, she then gave him a wonderful bath after his long 10-year war, and when he got out of the bath, she wrapped him in a purple royal cloak, but it had no head. So when he was entangled in this cloak, she stabbed him to death. Now, Orestes, their son, faced a very serious moral dilemma, and he consulted the oracle of Apollo. And his dilemma was, it was the son's duty to kill his father's murderess, a duty that came before all others. But a son who killed his mother was abhorrent to the gods and to men. So eventually, spurred on by his sister Electra and by the god Apollo, Orestes killed his mother, Clytemnestra, committing matricide, and his uncle Aegisthus, committing avunculicide to avenge his father's murder. But, as expected, he was persecuted by the Furies, who was born of the blood of the primordial sky god Uranus when he was castrated by his son Cronus. The Furies acted as avenging agents for murder, and they were exceptionally harsh on those who committed familicide, tormenting them with guilt feelings to the point of madness. Now, in ancient Athens, there were no public prosecutors. The family of the murdered victim could accuse a person who was put on trial. Orestes, Clytemnestra's eldest and only son, was not going to accuse or avenge himself for his murder. So in the very first murder case, the ghost of Clytemnestra herself appealed to the Furies, who then transitioned from being persecutors to turning into prosecutors. Orestes was defended no less by the god Apollo, who was also the one that spurred him on to kill his mother. And 12 Athenian male citizens were appointed as the jury. The trial in the Orestes, the trilogy, was illuminated the change from the emotional retaliation to the civilized decisions regarding alleged crimes. Orestes acknowledged that he killed his mother, but in his defense he said she had killed his father. Now, would the jury find mitigating circumstances in this murder trial? He was racked with guilt and remorse. The jury was split, and instead of declaring a mistrial, Athena herself stepped in and she acknowledged Orestes' remorse and she showed mercy by acquitting him. He was spared the fate of descending into the underworld, never to be rid of the terrible Furies. One would think that Orestes had learned his lesson, but he proceeded to kill his half-brother Orestes to retake his father's throne. Now, despite Athena exonerating him, Orestes could not rid himself of the guilt of killing his mother, and he ended his days in the sanctuary of the goddess Mané, the goddesses of madness. Orestes became the prototype for all people whose crimes are mitigated by extenuating circumstances. He was racked by guilt feelings, much like Macbeth, but in contrast to Lady Macbeth, Clytemnestra was not overcome with guilt for killing her husband. She said he killed her daughter. So guilt, remorse, forgiveness, mercy, and madness feature in the mythology of Orestes, and they often also make an appearance in modern trials. Some serial killers and spree killers also killed their mothers. In 1960, Henry Lee Lucas killed his mother by stabbing her in the neck. In 1961, Charles Whitman killed his mother and his wife before going on the spelling bee in the University of Texas and killing 14 people. In 1973, the serial killer Edmund Kemper, who had killed 6 women, beat his mother and one of her friends to death and then gave himself up to the police. In 1986, the spree killer Campo Elias Delgado killed his mother and 28 others. Now, unlike Orestes, serial killers are not racked by remorse, nor are they persecuted by the Furies. There is no mitigating circumstances for their deeds, and unlike Orestes, they should never be granted a second chance, for like Orestes, they are set up to kill again. Lyle and Eric Menéndez are not serial killers. They have atoned and they've made restitution towards society, and apparently they have been exemplary prisoners. The chances of them committing murder again is slim. Let us see what happens at the end of January. Let the judge decide, not Athena. If you like our intellectual approach to our videos, then please give us your thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you are seriously interested in forensic profiling and the criminal minds, then please join our Patreon community by clicking on the QR code. And we avoid synthetic sensationalism, and we analyze the mind of the criminals from an eclectic and an academic point of view.